as a teacher for 21 years of children who were dual language learners and English language learners. I've said often, and I believe it to my bones, if I had had these concrete tools and strategies as a classroom teachers, my students would probably be better off today. I wish I had had these when I was in the classroom. And then as a program leader, I had such a wonderful experience and entered it in as a learner alongside other program leaders and coaches and teachers, and really had the opportunity to learn about the places and how our children are supported in our community in many different settings, including home providers. We all were able to learn together. So we hope you find the same value in that and have this take this opportunity to learn together alongside your peers. We're excited to have you. We can't wait to get this first one to you and then move on to the next. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Deanna. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is the first of the 3 Training of Trainers sessions. My name is Maria Ceballos. I'm a director in the Early Learning Department in Fresno Unified School District, and I have the honor to be part of the Language Learning Project. And I also have the honor to introduce you this amazing team. But before I go ahead and introduce the team, I will first would like to acknowledge and extend our gratitude to the California Department of Education, Early Learning and Care Division for the Dual Language Learners Professional Grant that Fresno Unified School District received. Because of their funding contributions and support, we're happy to offer you this trainings. And a very special thanks to Dr. Luis Rios. Thank you, Dr. Rios, for trusting and believing in the Language Learning Project. Now I'm going to introduce you to our team. So I have, it is such an honor to introduce this amazing team of early childhood experts. They are the developers and the creators of the personalized oral language learning strategies, and they bring such a rich expertise and content of young children and families. We have Dr. Linda Espinosa, Dr. Carola Oliva Olsen, Elizabeth Magruder, and our wonderful Whit Hayslip. We're so lucky to be able to have them as partners with us in the Language Learning Project. You're going to be able to hear from them in every single session, and we hope that you get to enjoy them as much as we have. I'm also very happy to introduce our amazing Fresno Unified team that had been working on the Language Learning Project. We have Deanna. Thank you, Deanna, for the welcome. We also have Jessica Gutierrez. She's been the one coordinating and working with our experts on the development of these trainings. And we also have Ana Arambula. You heard her at the beginning, and she is our original coach of the Language Learning Project in Fresno. So once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And we hope that these sessions, that you find them helpful as you continue to support our young dual language learners. And with no further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Jessica.
Thank you, Maria. So welcome, everyone. We wanted to welcome you to this first session of our Training of Trainers. We're so excited to have you. I know I've had some correspondence with some of you, so I'm so excited. Everybody's finally here for our first session. And so thinking about making the most of our time together. Some of you may be familiar with Zoom, the platform we're using, and some may not be. So we wanted to just go over a few of the features that we'll be using today. Upon entry to the meeting, everyone was muted. And that is just so that everyone can hear all the presenters and the content being shared. So we ask that you keep yourself muted if you're not sharing aloud until we can all make the most of our time together. Also, because we're not able to be in the same space together, we love to see each other face to face with our cameras. We understand that there may be times we may need to turn them off, or also if your bandwidth or your internet, you're seeming to have connection issues, sometimes turning off your cameras may help. So please feel free to do that if you need to. Throughout our session, we welcome you to enter any questions or comments you may have into the chat. It will be monitored, and we'll have some time throughout our session where we'll be answering some of your questions and responding as well. We also wanted to let you know that our session is being recorded today, and it'll be available on our polestrategies.org website after the live session. So you can review it then, and others who may not be able to participate live today are able to view it as well. We have a scheduled break about halfway through our session, and we are scheduled to end at 12 p.m. today. So we have a lot of content. We're really excited. So now I want to just review our agenda. So we have a few things that we're going to be doing today, a lot of learning. First, if you've been a part of our Pole Strategies trainings before, you know we love to get started with a song. It really is the heart of Pole. So we are going to get started with a song from Whit and myself. Then we'll get into a panel with the creators of our personalized oral languages learning or Pole strategies. So Dr. Carola Oliva Olsen, Dr. Linda Espinosa, Elizabeth Magruder, and that's facilitated by Whit. We also will have an overview of the training of trainers sessions. So Elizabeth will give us an overview of the 3 sessions. And we'll also have an orientation to the training platform that is our polestrategies.org website. So I'll be guiding you through that. And we'll also have, finally, some key considerations for effective training as we move into training on Pole. So that's our agenda for today. It's really packed, and we are excited to get started with you all. With that, I will pass it to Whit to get us started on our song.
Good morning, everyone. So happy to see so many people from all over the state. And I also want to shout out my dear friends from Southwest Human Development in Arizona who are also part of this. So we're so excited that we're here together, California and Arizona together, working on these strategies. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. And I know some of you have heard me for years. It's like a lot of years I've been in the field. And everyone always knows that I love to sing. And so I do singing in all of my training, but I want to tell you something, that my work with the 3 creators of Pole have changed my whole view about singing songs and chants. They brought a new emphasis to me, a new understanding of the power of songs and chants, particularly for our dual language learners. So you're going to hear a lot about that through these 3 sessions, and you're also going to have a chance to do a lot of that. But it's just been such a joy for me to be able to take something I love, something I've always done in early childhood, and find new meaning to it and new emphasis and new intentionality. Actually, that's a lot of what Pole is about. Pole is not about bringing all brand new curriculum or brand new projects or brand new activities. It's bringing a new lens, a new emphasis there to help our dual language learners. So we're going to start with a song today. Jessica and I are going to do it. And I know sometimes it's kind of weird out there sitting by yourselves in front of your computer, but I'm by myself in front of my computer. So you're going to have to join along with me as we do this. Some of you know this is a song I have done. Now, are you ready for this? I've done this song for more than 40 years. This is a song I love, and young children love this song too. So let's get started with this song. Here we go. Okay, this is a song about Johnny. And Johnny, it was Saturday morning, and Johnny was watching TV. And of course, he was watching cartoons. He was loving his cartoons. But Johnny's mommy had lots of things to do. She had to go to the grocery store. She had to go by grandma's house and pick up some things. She had to go and see some people down the street. She had lots of things to do. But Johnny was glued to the TV set, and he did not want to move. So Johnny's mommy came up to Johnny, and she said, here we go. Oh, Johnny, will you wash your face? Oh, Johnny, will you wash your face? Now, okay, now I know that some of you are on mute, but I want to see your mouths moving there. I know that you're muted, but I want to see your mouths moving. Here we go. Oh, Johnny, will you wash your face? Oh, Johnny, will you wash your face? Okay, Johnny looked up at his mom and he said, Speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. Speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. See those mouths moving again. Let's do that one. Speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. Speak a little louder, Mom. I really
didn't hear you.
Okay, so Johnny's mommy got a little louder voice. And this time she said, oh, Johnny, will you brush your teeth, teeth? Oh, Johnny, will you brush your teeth, teeth? And Johnny looked up at Mom. He said, speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. Speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. So, in her very loudest voice, Johnny's mommy said, oh, Johnny, will you comb your hair? Oh, Johnny, will you comb your hair? Johnny looked up at Mom and said, speak a little louder, Mom. I really didn't hear you. Speak a little louder, Mom. I
really didn't hear you.
Johnny's mom scratched her head. She thought, I think Johnny's teasing me. I think he's playing a trick on me. So, in her very softest voice, Johnny's mommy said, oh, Johnny, would you like ice cream cone? Oh, Johnny, would you like an ice cream cone? And this time Johnny said, yes, mommy, now I really hear you. Yes, mommy, now I really hear you. So Johnny's mommy said, okay, Johnny, first, you need to wash your face, then you need to comb your hair, then you need to brush your teeth, then we're going to go do all of our errands, and when we're done, you and I are going to have ice cream cones. Okay, children love this song. I want you to think about all the vocabulary, all the concepts that are in that song, and you can really understand why through the years children have asked me to sing this song over and over and over. But now with Pole, I've learned that we have real power in terms of language development and dual language learners. And so Jessica is going to show us how Pole strategies and singing and chants can be used in both English and home language. Let's take it, Jessica.
Gracias, señor Witt. Entonces, yo voy a cantar la misma canción en español. Vamos a empezar, que es sábado otra vez y la mamá de Juanito tiene muchas cosas que hacer. Tiene que ir a la tienda, tiene que ir a ver a la abuela, también tiene que dejar unas cartas en la oficina de correos. Y Juanito está ahí pegado a la televisión viendo las caricaturas. Entonces la mamá de Juanito se acerca y empieza a decir, Juanito, lávate tu carita.
Juanito, lávate tu carita.
Los oigo, gracias por cantar conmigo otra vez.
Juanito, lávate tu carita. Lávate tu carita.
Juanito dice, háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Entonces la mamá de Juanito empieza a cantar más alto y dice, Juanito, lávate tus dientes. Juanito, lávate tus dientes. Y Juanito todavía dice que no lo oye. Entonces dice, háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Entonces, esta vez la mamá de Juanito empieza a casi gritar En su voz más alta dice, Juanito, Juanito, peínate tu pelo. Juanito, Juanito, peínate tu pelo. Y Juanito todavía dice que no oyes nada. Entonces dice, háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Háblame más alto, mami, que yo no te oigo. Y entonces la mamá de Juanito dice, ¿cómo puede ser que no me oye? Todavía si estoy gritando, a lo mejor está jugando conmigo, se está burlando de mí. Entonces, en su voz más callada, más bajito, dice, Juanito, Juanito, ¿quieres un helado? Juanito, Juanito, ¿quieres un helado? Y es un milagro que Juanito sí la oye, esta vez sí escucha. Entonces dice Juanito, sí, mami, ahora yo te oigo. Sí, mami, ahora yo te oigo. Y la mamá de Juanito dice, oh, claro que sí me oyes. Entonces, primero tienes que lavarte la cara, tienes que lavarte los dientes, también tienes que peinarte el pelo y después vamos a ir a hacer todo lo que tengo que hacer y después de eso, al fin, podemos agarrar un helado. Entonces, gracias por cantar conmigo y ahora lo voy a pasar al señor Whit, who will now introduce our expert panel, our creators of Pole.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, I have good news for everybody that throughout the training and with the foundational training videos you're going to see lots of Jessica in a program with young children. She's a fabulous teacher, and she was one of our first people to learn about Pole. And so she's going to show you lots of wonderful, wonderful strategies. Okay, one of the things I want to tell you about this next section, and we thought hard about this in terms of what we needed to do to begin the training. And I want to recall a story when we first developed Pole more than 10 years ago. And that one of the things that we had 36 wonderful early childhood teachers who were going to help us sort of figure out how to use this. And they were sort of our pilot group. And one of the things they kept telling us was how much they appreciated not just getting the strategies, but understanding where the strategies came from, why we were doing them. And so when we decided to think about you trainer of trainers who are going to be out there now in your communities, helping people understand these strategies, it was really important for you to understand where they came from, the whys behind them. Where did this come from? It wasn't just sort of created out of thin air. What's the theory behind it? Why did we do that this way? Plus, where do the experts see this going on now that we're moving it out into other communities? So I have the great pleasure, you're going to see it now, of hosting a panel with the three wonderful creators of Pole. And so you're going to take a look at it now. I'm going to tell you, it's a nice long chunk, but I think you're going to find it so helpful to you as you sort of lay the foundation for doing the training in your community. Here we go.
Sorry, guys. Of course, it decided to freeze on me. So give me 1 second.
This is Whit Hayslip again, and it is my great honor to host this next section of our training. And we are so excited to have the three professional experts who created these POL strategies, the personalized oral language learning strategies that we've been using in the language learning project. And so today we're going to come together with those three wonderful experts and talk a little bit about these strategies, the development of the strategies, and also where we're going to move on with those strategies. So our three experts, and I'm going to call you all experts, our three experts are Linda Espinosa, who I think many of you are familiar with. And Linda is a leading expert in our country and has done all kinds of important work that has really led the whole field on. And so we are so grateful to Linda to have been sort of the inspiration and the guiding force as we have moved through this project. Also want to introduce Carola Oliva Olson, who was a colleague of Linda. Linda brought Carola into our project, and Carola has been such an asset to our project, and especially bringing in the world of the higher education and how we are merging with higher education in terms of carrying these strategies on. And finally, Elizabeth Magruder, who was the coach in the original cohort that started using these POL strategies and has continued to be a trainer. Many of you I know have met Elizabeth through state trainings and has been a wonderful advocate for this process. One of the things as I was getting ready for us to do this today, I was thinking about people said, well, how did this get started? And I think some of you out there that work in systems say, who funded it? How did this all happen? And so I want to really give thanks to two entities. The first one I want to give thanks to is a visionary school superintendent named Ramon Cortinas. And so Mr. Cortinas had the vision that we were going to start at the time transitional kindergarten didn't exist in California. He had the vision to say we were going to pilot it in what was LA Unified at that point. And he also had the vision to say, yes, let's focus on dual language learners as we move ahead with that project. And so I want to thank Mr. Cortinas for helping us and contributing district funding to get this off the ground. I also want to thank the David and Lucille Packard Foundation, who found out what we were doing and offered us some money to help support this. And so thank you to Mr. Cortinas, and thank you to the David and Lucille Packard Foundation for helping this all get off the ground. So we're going to do a little reminiscing. And I'm three of these friends who were there at the beginning, we're going to reminisce with today and really talk about the beginnings of POL. And so that I think what we want to ask you first is we're going to talk about the beginnings, and we want to say, why was POL needed? It was like, what did we learn? What was going on at that point? What were we looking at as we looked at that project in LA Unified to fig that we needed POL? And because Linda was, as I said, sort of the inspiration for a lot of this work, Linda, why don't you start with talk about some of that, what we were seeing, what was needed at that point?
Absolutely. Well, if you'll remember back in 2009, when you hired me to design the program elements for this new transitional kindergarten program. And I agree, the impetus for this was a visionary leader, was your superintendent, Ramon Cortinas. So whom I had worked with before. But evidently he saw a real need as far as the entering kindergarten students, that he didn't feel that they were really well prepared for the academic rigor of kindergarten. So he initiated this project, you hired me, and the first thing that I did was to look at the demographics of the entering kindergarten students and take a look at who were these children. And obviously, mostly they were dual language learners. I think in the pilot schools, there were about 85% dual language learners that represented a whole variety of languages. These were not just English and Spanish speaking families. And then the second thing I did was look at achievement patterns, kindergarten through third grade. So why was there this concern, this need to elevate school readiness skills in children? And what we found out, it was very interesting because I hadn't anticipated this. Remember, this was back in 2009, was that in kindergarten, dual language learners actually achieve at about grade level on these things we call word attack skills. They're early literacy skills like alphabetic knowledge, phonological awareness, knowledge of sight words, etc. So they look very good actually in what we measure as early literacy skills during the kindergarten years. But then as you followed them through their first and second grades, you started to see a fall off in about middle of first grade until by the end of second grade, these children were significantly below their monolingual English-speaking peers. And where they really started to fall off was in the area of comprehension. So what we had was a situation where dual language learners could sound out words. They were proficient in these certain word attack skills, but they did not have sufficient vocabulary or oral language skills to really understand what it was that they were sounding out. So this comprehension started to decline. And actually, it never recovered if you look at their K through 6 performance, their achievement scores, in literacy in particular. The very interesting thing was when we first started talking about this, it was kind of a surprise for all of us. But in the next year, several large-scale studies came out with the same exact findings, kind of confirming what we had found at LAUSD was kind of a national finding that where the real need was for dual language learners was in the area of oral language skills. Okay, so then I hired Carola, and Carola came on board, and what we did was to look at all of the available early childhood curricula. We identified 23 criteria, if you'll remember, and then we reviewed each curricula, each program approach, and some of them were single subject approaches that addressed the needs of dual language learners. So we looked at these curricula, these programs, and we evaluated them against a set of criteria that was also based on the science at that point about what was in the best interest long-term for English language learners once they entered into kindergarten. So we took a look at all of these programs and highlighted several of them. Many kind of fell out based on different criteria. They weren't developmentally appropriate, or they didn't have a strong family engagement component, or whatever. So we identified about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 that were real promising approaches. And then Elizabeth, Carola, and I went out and visited a number of these programs so we could actually see them in action. You kind of have to see something as it's being implemented to really get a good idea whether it meets the criteria and the approaches that you're designing. So based upon all that, we put all of that information together. I don't know if you guys remember that, and then we huddled for several days up there at the LAUSD offices and identified those elements that then were consistent with what the science told us was in the best interest in promoting early bilingualism. And remember, this was during Prop 227. So California was still under a prohibitive policy, which kind of reduced the ability of teachers and programs and schools to really fully embrace bilingual ed in the birth to 5 arena. So the POLE approach was really designed for all variety of teachers to support all variety of languages. So we knew that we couldn't do full-fledged dual language programs in many of these sites, but we also knew that all of these children deserve to have the kind of support, the kind of instructional adaptations that they need to prosper in both acquiring English and acquiring vocabulary knowledge, in acquiring the types of language skills that they're going to need, not just in kindergarten, but look at K-6 and beyond. And that we also need teachers. Not all of the teachers had multiple language capacities. You know, in fact, many of them were monolingual English speakers. So at that time, and I think it is really still true across the country, the predominant need was to have all teachers, even monolingual English-speaking teachers, because almost all teachers have dual language learners in their classrooms, learn a set of strategies that would support multiple languages and not default to an all or nothing approach. I can't do dual language, but they won't let me do bilingual ed. Therefore, we're doing English only, and we're going to ignore the needs of home language maintenance and home language support. And so we came up with our initial version of personalized, because everybody needs adaptations, with a real emphasis on oral language development.
Linda, you brought up something which I think is very important, and I know that Elizabeth was very much a part of this. We had 36 teachers in our first cohort, and they were implementing this program for 4s and young 5s that we'd never had before in California. And that one of the things I so remember from the first training is that you and Carola did was practically every one of those 36 teachers, after you presented that criteria for choosing and all the elements and whatever, they said they had never been presented a program where they got presented the why we were choosing that program. They said they had been given curricula or programs before, and no one had ever sat down and said, this is what we were looking for, and these are the elements that are there. And so they were so appreciative. They were so appreciative of the fact that you and Carola walked them through that. Here's what we know from the science. Here's what we know is good for our dual language learners. Here's what we looked for, and here's what we decided to do around these polls. It was powerful. And as Elizabeth knows, I think it got them on board at the very beginning about this. They were feeling like we were in this together. One of the things that I used to joke about this in terms of this first, very, very, very first group of transitional kindergarten teachers was that when I said, now, when you go back to your schools and one of those upper elementary or even your principal says, well, that's not the way we're supposed to do it in transitional kindergarten. At that point, they said, nobody knows how we're supposed to do it in transitional kindergarten. So we're figuring this out together. So it was really powerful for them to feel like they were helping us form it.
Right. And I think that going back to that initial training, we were very careful to include the principals of those schools at those original pilot sites, because if you need administrative buy-in, and we found even that first initial meeting where we talked about it, one of the advantages of getting really old and doing this for a very long time is that you really can't impose things. You have to have some sort of a two-way dialogue about what's going to fit best in different situations. And there is still quite a bit of flexibility in POLE to do that. But if you don't have your supervisors on board and agreeing, when they come into your classroom, you all agree, what are the good and important elements to support the goals that we have for our children, then teachers will be in a bind.
Right.
If they don't feel they are completely supported with whatever approach they are implementing, they won't do it. So anyway, I think that initial meeting, and then we also, if you'll remember, had the principals come back in January.
Yeah.
Because we needed that continuing sort of shared understanding of what it was that we were trying to implement with the teachers, the children.
So Carola, as another one of the people that was originally presenting, some of your memories about that early implementation and why we did it and what we were doing.
What worked wonderfully was that the teachers will go try it out, and then they will come back and talk to us and tell us really what they struggled with, the different experiences they had. And then remember, we would all get together late after the trainings and think about, okay, what do we do with this information? And that was critical because it was based on what they would tell us would happen once they would go back to their classrooms and with the different children that they were serving. They were all in different classrooms with different kinds of languages and different languages that they were exposed to or bilingual in. And then that helped us frame what we would do for the future sessions.
And Carola, I so remember that, and people, and this is really important, I think, in a trainer of trainers, that we actually had an agenda set for the week, and we had some things, PowerPoints ready, and each day we had conversation that led us to, hey, tomorrow is not what we thought it should be. And so that night we would revise, and the teachers were so appreciative. It was like they really felt that they were involved in this and that it was an organic process of developing this together.
We still have received emails from the teachers participating in that group.
And Carola, in terms of your experience, because I know you had worked a lot in Head Start prior to coming and doing this. So what was, in terms of, I think the POLE being new, what did you see in it that was different, Carola, than what was going on in other programs around the country?
So in general, the big question was, what does equity look like in these classrooms when you have children who don't have English language skills yet. And they're there to benefit from the program, right? From attending and being exposed to all these different planned and spontaneous moments, teachable moments. But if they don't have the English language skills to understand what's happening and be able to participate and produce language, then how are they benefiting from everything everyone else is exposed to? So these strategies, what helped all the educators who were participating in our professional development sessions started understanding that these strategies help the child connect and have access to the learning, whether it's about a math experience or something related to science or transitions, right? That as we're developing and helping them develop the English language skills, we are taking advantage of what they already know and connecting, bridging with their home language, but also making the learning accessible. Right. In that way, they have full access and effective participation in all of the learning opportunities that all the educators are planning for.
You know, Elizabeth, I want you to follow up on that issue about accessibility, because I think one of the important things was this issue of about what teachers and we were not putting a new curriculum on people. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So we had started with the concept that these strategies weren't something that took the place of curriculum or were add-ons in some way, but could easily be integrated into the work that they were doing. So oftentimes, as we know, teachers have various curricula that they use. And in this case, with the 36, they had a standardized curriculum that they were, engaged with on a daily basis. So the POL strategies, we had to be really intentional about sharing ways that we could integrate those strategies throughout the day, various lessons, but also it wasn't just about the instructional components, it was about the environmental components and paying attention to how you're using language and providing exposure to language through transitions in the morning when you're greeting families, at the end of the day during pickup. And so really taking apart that this isn't an add-on or something that you do to children or do with children, but in service of really that broader exposure to language and language use. So it was an interesting evolution, I think, coming from with that group who were used to standards and curriculum and administrative requirements to actually have this freedom and flexibility to understand the why, to understand the developmental continuum of children, of what's happening in those early language opportunities and exposure in the home language, and then how they're able to integrate it and use it in very intentional ways with the strategies. The other thing I would say that was a real shift, I think, in thinking was the idea of the fear that many had in being monolingual English, because many of them were, and the idea that they wouldn't be able to serve other languages well. Because they weren't fluent or they didn't understand it, or maybe the accent wasn't correct. And so I think we helped to demystify that you don't have to be fluent in someone's language to be able to communicate. And so that was another kind of hurdle that we lived through together and we experienced together, and were able to make concrete ways to really support home language, even if you don't speak the language of the child.
Yeah, and about this issue, I think it's really important, for us to think about one of the things that was crucial to this. I'm going to have you, Linda, talk about it since you created. As we talked about valuing families and valuing home language, that was such a crucial element. So, Linda, you want to talk a little bit about that focus in POL?
Right. Well, I think at that time the predominant practice was to send home a home language survey that had 3 questions on it. What language do you speak? Do you speak English in the home? Do you speak another language? What is it, et cetera? And that was the primary way that teachers got some information about what the child's early language learning experiences were. we felt, well, in early childhood, I mean, we absolutely knew that these families and these children came to us with a wealth of experiences, a wealth of early language skills and expertise, that we as educators, not one of us knew all of those languages or all of those cultures. And in order for us to serve those children and families, we had to learn about what was it that was going on in the home? How were families prioritizing their home language? Did they speak a second or third language in the home? And how were they addressing the need for the children to acquire English? Also, what were their preferences around languages being spoken? And so we designed this little structured interview set of questions, because I think on this topic of engaging with families around home language practices, sometimes teachers can feel intimidated. Like, you don't want to step on somebody's toes. You certainly don't want to make families feel like they are not doing the right thing by their child because they're not speaking English or whatever. We truly wanted to have a process whereby teachers and families could share information and express a valuing of what that family and that child brings into that setting. So that family may know Urdu, say. Nobody on my staff knows Urdu. And I just need to find out about when that child was exposed, who does that child speak the language to, for what purpose. So you kind of get an idea of what language environment the child has been experiencing, so that when the child is in the classroom, and let's say the child doesn't speak, let's say there is no other child in that classroom that speaks Urdu, you have an understanding of why that child's silent. And it may have nothing to do with language abilities per se, because they may be quite fluent in their home language, but they don't know anybody around them that they can speak to in the language that they're really proficient in. So anyway, so that process of engaging with families sort of sparks this collaborative partnership. And if we approach it from the point of view of, I can learn and gain from this interaction. And actually, that was one of the first things I think the pilot teachers told us, was how much they learned from the families. And it was important not to make assumptions about what that family or that child, what skills, what backgrounds, what talents they had, but really approach it from an open mind. Tell me what your family is engaged in. Tell me who your child speaks to. When you do that, I think it really communicates to parents that they have something to contribute into your classroom. And that's really the goal, that we share with families our educated mission, of course, that's what we are, and that families share with us and contribute to that educated mission by bringing some of that home into the classroom. And it can be knowledge of family background, family composition, whatever that family is interested in sharing with the classroom and with the other children, and with that educated mission that you have. So it starts that partnership going. And I know from previous experience, and we certainly experienced it in LAUSD and certainly in Fresno as well, is that once teachers sort of open that up, you see this huge growth in the teachers. You see this huge growth in terms of what the parents start contributing into that classroom environment. And people, I think, embrace then this idea of, I can learn other cultures. This child and this family can help me learn the language. And I always think of it as potentially gifted, because we all learn and we do. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. And it expands and enriches all of our lives. I really believe that. And that's been, I think, one of the main findings of the poll in its dissemination, is how really central this connection with families has been, and how really important it's been for teachers to seriously and actively engage in that process.
Carola, I know you're doing a lot of work now with the interview, but I wanted you to talk a little bit, Carola, about this issue, which we've seen around how this discussion of bilingualism comes from that interview, not necessarily a speech that is given to the families, but through that conversation.
I remember one of the teachers saying that a family had shared that they felt that they were given permission to speak their home language, and that in that relationship that was built throughout, starting from that point, that they felt that they could talk to the teacher about their concerns, especially their concerns that had to do with not knowing if their child was going to learn English well once they went into elementary school, kindergarten, and the rest of the grades. And so it allowed for the teachers to start that conversation and not just be that one point in time when they learn about the history or the prior experiences with the home language and English, but to go discuss the importance of maintaining their home language, how to reach some other activities or community sites where they could explore and visit with their children, and then show the importance of building a community where they all speak the home language, and that brings a value and respect, but also the importance of all the advantages that brings in life. So I think that what the teachers were able to feel and live through that process was as important as it was for the families.
Right. And Elizabeth, because Elizabeth was coaching and working with the teachers, so do you remember, Elizabeth, some of their responses about the use of that?
I do. So I would agree with Linda and Carola. It opens up this dialogue. It's a safe space. You're getting to know each other. And I think families are really understanding that this person responsible for my child during the day cares deeply, cares what we think. And for us, the connection meant that planning could be very intentional. So when you're thinking about the interests of the child, the languages that they speak, the POLE strategies are really designed for teachers and providers to begin to work through the environment. How are children and families represented? What types of interests do you see? Do they see themselves in the environment? Are they visible? And that was an entry point for teachers to draw the connection. It isn't about the fancy materials or bringing in or buying, things to fill up a space to make it look attractive. It was really about designing something from the heart and from the value system of the families and the children in their care. And so that initial interview and conversation opened the door for ongoing conversations, which then really helped teachers and for us to begin to think about, what does planning look like now that I know this child, now that I know where they are, the language they speak, and the family's goals. We can begin to create some goals and use instructional supports in the environment and have those pieces in mind as we're designing oral language opportunities.
I remember one story in Fresno in particular that's always been powerful to me. We had one reluctant teacher. She was involved and was reluctant. And so we introduced the interview format. And so she started doing it with her families. And she was meeting with one of her monolingual parents who she had only met at the enrollment. She had never seen the mother again. And so she set up an appointment for do this. And so they had this conversation. And for the first time, the mother realized that she could offer something in that classroom. And so it ends up that mother was not working and was really looking for an outlet and became a daily volunteer in that classroom and was reading in her home language and working with kids in their home language. And it was through this mechanism that opened that conversation and opened the door for that. So it's like, and what was also interesting about that teacher, she was a state preschool teacher and she had 24 kids in the morning and 24 in the afternoon. And so when she started to do this, we said, we want you to try, but you may want to gradually do this. We don't expect you to come back and have done it with all. She had such success with it. She said, I'm doing it with all my families. I'm finding the time. I'm doing it because, like you said, Elizabeth, it's opening the door for my planning. It's changing the way that I work. So you know what I want to do is now move to this question about, okay, since this beginning, since this origins of it, what do you think we've learned about it? I'm going to go to you, Linda. Like, what have we learned about some of the elements of it, do you think, in the time since it was first set?
Sure. Well, from my point of view, I think we've learned that some of the aspects of POL are easier to implement than others. So, for instance, I think, we've been talking about the family engagement, the interview process. That pretty much is, almost all teachers can implement it fairly successfully very quickly. The environmental aspects of it, I would say same thing, that all teachers can implement environmental responsiveness to the languages and the cultures and the families that are represented. We can do that. It's the language interaction part. And within early childhood, certainly since the day I entered it, and I won't tell you what year that was, but it was a long time ago, this has been an ongoing challenge for early care and education to, how do we promote the types of language interactions that both promote a deeper understanding of English, that oral language, the vocabulary, the grammatical structures, etc., and also continue to support the ongoing development of the child's home language. So it's not just which language, but it's also how to use each language in further expanded in helping those children really grow in their language proficiency skills. I think this has been an ongoing area that our field has struggled with, quite frankly, whether it's in monolingual English-speaking classrooms or dual language classrooms or POL classrooms. It is an area where I think we are all figuring out how to continue to support that higher level language interactions that all teachers should be having with all children. I also think that, and I think Elizabeth is going to talk about this a little bit more, that we really hadn't thought too much about the birth to 3 aspect of it. And so we had to adapt some of the strategies for that particular population. And again, and Carola, you talked about it, we had to listen to teachers. What is it that's really difficult for them? And they told us in some of the PDs, we don't get this stages of English language development. You guys are breezing right past this. We don't know what you mean by stage 2 or whatever, And so we would have to go back and rethink all of that.
Linda, would you say that again? I think that's been really, because I think so much of the professional development is focused on that. So just describe what that is and what we kind of have done about those levels.
You mean stage of English language development? Because we were talking, in a generic way very early on about adapting your language interactions depending upon the child's stage of English language development. So if they knew very little, you didn't use sophisticated and grammatically complex sentences. You sort of toned it down. Well, what we realized, all of us sort of had an understanding of what that should look like because it's in the desired results developmental profiles. So we sort of had an idea of what that progression should look like. A lot of teachers had really never thought in those terms before. They were listening to what the child maybe was saying and trying to be responsive. So if he's talking about a block or a truck or whatever, they were kind of listening to that. They really weren't tuning into what we thought was a pretty obvious progression. So I remember when we thought, okay, we have rushed past this thing and expected them to understand it and adapt spontaneously their language interactions with the child, who maybe at some point that's not really obvious. So we had to go back to that and really and make it its own, almost, if you want, from a course perspective, its own unit of study. We really had to go much deeper into that in order to have everybody have a common understanding what this meant and how to be responsive. Because, sometimes when we use our jargon with teachers, we think it's perfectly clear. They don't have a clue what we're talking about, because we among ourselves, we've thought these words up, quite literally. And teachers are there every day, one-on-one, interacting with these students. So they think maybe in slightly different terms. I guess in that sense, we had to adapt based upon what they were telling us they did or didn't understand.
Okay,
This was not a packaged professional development.
Elizabeth, you're talking, tell them, it's such a good story, Elizabeth, about the chart, I'm going to say, that we all created, that we gave to the cohort about that.
about language levels,
Yes.
as I recall. So one of the things that Linda's speaking to and that was fascinating was it was perfectly clear in our mind that if you knew where a child's language level was, that you could slowly scaffold and build in intentionality and a specific language goal for that child, forgetting that you have many children all at very different levels of language learning, and that it's while we can be very intentional in knowing the goals of each child, how that plays out when you're actually in that environment and in that moment with children around you looks very different. So one of the, so we saw big eyeballs, as I recall, and a lot of this, I think I know what this means. And then we always built in time for reflection, or we'd say, go off and try and come back and tell us all about it. And it was in those reflective spaces where we just knew right away that things were not working. It was too complex, and we were almost breaking things down too much to the point where we were missing the big picture. So we had to swing back and really spend a lot of time. What do language actions look like at different times of the day, with different staff, with parents, and also really build this way of making concrete and visible. So we did a lot of role playing. We incorporated activities that teachers could really sink into and understand what it looks like, what it sounds like, and how we build those support systems. So we did do a lot of scratch that and let's figure this out in a different way. So,
Yeah, and that was another example of building trust with the teachers. Yeah. We gave this chart, and they were to list all of the kids in their class, and they were supposed to then list what language. I mean, they came back and they were mortified. And so instead of we didn't say, oh, we'll work more on that. We said, we're going to put this aside for now, and so they were so appreciative that we were able to help them at that next step where they were. Carol, I'm just, in terms of your own experience, because I know you're working a lot in terms of Educare and Franklin McKinley. It's how does that issue about sort of the level of sophistication and how we gear it?
And we have different teachers there who speak different languages represented in the children. We have Vietnamese, we have Spanish, and while the teachers might not speak those languages, they do make a lot of effort in learning key vocabulary, phrases, trying to connect with the children, with the families, but also to make children feel that there's a connection with their home experience and the classroom. And that the end goal for the teachers is not only for them to feel that there's trust, that their sense of identity is honored, and that they are open to learning, but also that they want them to use language freely, that it's not about answering a lot of questions. It's about getting them to produce language, to be interested in sharing, interested in becoming conversationalists, as all children really want to do. So that has been a primary element of what we do in the classroom with coaching. So a priority. Sometimes I lose my words. And so this has been an area where in coaching, we look at, for example, we're having a small group and there's a child whose level of English proficiency is much lower than another. Well, maybe we see what is it about that unique child we see not an attempt to try to use some of the key words that we're focusing on. And then we realize, well, maybe it has to do with they don't want to try it out until they know it perfectly well, right? And that's when we use songs. Because songs becomes a venue, a perfectly easy and enticing way for the child to participate without having to worry that they know everything perfectly. And they are using the language then. So by doing those small groups and coaching in the classroom and seeing together, teachers and us together, seeing what is happening, what are children doing, what do we know about each individual child, then we have a conversation that is in context. Yep. And that has been a wonderful tool. and resource at Educare.
Yeah, and you know what? And I want to go back to Linda when you said that about the jargon. We use all this jargon that we think everyone understands. One of the things that I have loved about POLE is it sort of takes the concrete things that we do in early childhood and brings a new lens to them. I've just so appreciated that. And that's one of the things we say. It's like, yes, these are the things you do. I mean, we're not coming up with new magical things you do, but how do you use them? And so I think that's been a real gift, Linda, in terms of the POLE strategies.
Right. Some of that real explicit guidance.
Yes.
You know, this is what supporting home language. This is when you can introduce it. This is how you can.
Right.
And the songs and the chants and all of that sort of thing. I mean, we do that in early childhood, but it's making it very systematic for a very intentional purpose. But it's still that joyful engagement around music that all the children love.
Yes.
So we use things in an intentional way to achieve these language development goals.
Now, and Elizabeth, just a little bit about what this whole issue about sort of these learning, like beginning to do it, just in terms of sort of your experience in training and how this sort of growing competence and how we've used that in the workshops.
Yeah, so we've had a blend. We've gone through several cohorts, and what we've found is there's nothing like that networking opportunity. So we've been fortunate that in our workshops, not only is there a blend of learning and concrete ways for the teachers to actually practice, but there are ways for them to engage and work with each other and have that kind of cross-agency, multi-age lens as we're working together. And the other thing that I think has been really powerful is having coaches and others in the room, administrators together in that process. I think teachers feel incredibly supported. Everyone is hearing the same thing, but they're having really small group dialogue about what does this mean for us? What does this mean for our program? Our family childcare home providers were also a big part of. That's a unique environment, and that support system looks different for them than it would a center base. So we had lots of opportunities for sharing, reflection, having time to actually role play or practice so that those concrete, specific strategies they could try, and then they had that concept and the understanding to be able then to go and try it out in their learning settings. And it was very much an open process of try it and tell us what's working, what's not working. I think that's what we always try to focus on, or where are those challenges? So that feedback loop process was a big part of working together to really deeply understand and to have time to really share and ask questions to continue to really try to deepen practice and deepen understanding.
So, Linda, I'm going to change this a little here now because you have been such a leader nationally in the field. And also, I know you were a critical member of the National Academy's report that looked at what we're doing around dual language learners in our country. Where do you think the field is right now, Linda? I mean, in terms of, as we're looking at these people that are training here, any sort of I know in a capsule, where do you think we are right now on this issue?
Well, I think we have made progress. I know some people like to say we haven't made progress in 20 years. It's not true, we have. If you will remember, even from 2009 to now, I think there is general agreement, both understanding and agreement on the big principles. I don't have audiences that fight with me over whether we should be supporting early bilingualism, support the home language. It's really now about procedurally how to do it. So it's the guidance, the practical strategies, which we really have tried to develop through the POLE approach. But it's really that sort of concrete guidance for teachers about what to do in the classrooms and when. Because like anything, when it's new, and if you're supporting multiple languages and you're a monolingual English-speaking teacher, when you first start implementing something, you can be very self-conscious about it and very unsure about any particular practice. So I think it's really getting that guidance so it becomes sort of a natural, habitual part of our everyday early childhood classrooms. The other thing that I would say, and what I just said, I think is pretty much across the board, across the country, in terms of accepting the principles, although there are still parts of the country that think it should be English only. I mean, I have to acknowledge that. That is pretty much on the wane. It's really not an accepted practice. And everything we've published from the National Academy's report, everything, every study that's coming out is basically supporting those same principles. The thing that I think we need going forward, okay, what there's a desperate need for going forward are which aspects of those specific practices result in what types of gains for children. So we talked about this oral language. Okay, so should we, how much time should we spend reading this particular storybook with this type of vocabulary? How many times should we read it in the home language? How many times should we read it in English? And is that a bigger part of language growth and development than, say, our informal conversations we have in Dramatic Play Center or something like that? So we get an idea of where to put the emphasis, where to put the time, and how to structure our days so we capitalize. Like the teacher you mentioned at first, you have 3 hours a day. You have a lot to do in 3 hours in a day. So how do you structure that time to capitalize on what we know from the research is really in the best interest? I think those are some of the more nuanced questions around curriculum implementation that we still have quite a ways to go.
Yeah.
I mean, in the big picture, I think we're there. And sort of the intricacies underneath the big principles, we don't have a really substantial research base on that.
So, Carola, just because I know you now have moved on to a research institute, but that you were in higher education for a number of years. So from that lens, where do you think we are? I mean, as you see students coming through now, where do you think we are in the field?
Well, I think every program now has a course that focuses on young dual language learners and on families, of course. But we need more that integrates what we learn in these essential courses and foundational courses like young dual language learners into all of the other courses. Because you can't be taking a course on logical mathematical thinking and leave aside a session where you talk about, well, when you have children who are dual language learners, then remember you have to implement the strategies. But it's not throughout the entire, course during the semester. And it's not a separate thing. Classrooms, settings will have children who are dual language learners. And whether you're a teacher who speaks the language of the child or don't, or speak the language of the child or children, then you need to implement those strategies on a daily basis. So I think that's a step that hasn't been taken yet. That is critical. But I do see that most programs, early childhood programs in bachelor's degrees, have a course, at least one course that's on dual language learning. Whether they focus on the data, right? Linda was just sharing everything that we know now from the National Academy of Sciences and all the review of all the studies and are incorporated into these courses. Not sure that we're there yet either, but so there's lots of work to do for sure, but we're on our way. I think that this is something that's being asked for across the counties, at least in our state.
So Elizabeth, your work over the last several years has actually been very broad around early childhood education throughout the state with many programs. So in terms of looking at what you see in California, like sort of where we are, what do you think? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
I'm seeing relief, excitement, motivation. And I think in the trainings, I think the on-the-ground work where we can be most practical and concrete and provide resources and supports and be networks to each other, starting on the ground is where it often starts, where there are gaps to fill and there's information that's missing. And so I think in these training opportunities, where we're opening it up to look really at birth to 5, not just preschool age, everyone has a place at the table in learning how to really help support language development, home language and English, And I think we're getting better at sharing that information and those resources. So as we build and develop and continue to work through how we're serving and supporting young dual language learners and their families, trainings are crucial at this point, and getting information out and having opportunities to have professional development workshops, and certainly virtually. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it has taken the face-to-face element out of it. But at the same time, we can reach more in the virtual space, and we can be as effective in sharing strategies and knowledge with each other. So I'm actually excited and hopeful that in these new mechanisms, we'll be able to reach more and support the field.
Okay, we're coming to an end here, so I'm going to ask you all to sum up something, and this is a tough question, but just to let you know that, and it's going to be shared at the beginning of our Trainer of Trainers sessions for more than 250 trainers and coaches from 65 different agencies from more than 30 counties in California, so that your impact here is phenomenal. And it's also been phenomenal to us that these are not just practitioners, these are trainers that want to learn how to implement these strategies. So Linda, as these people that you're talking to now are trainers, so that they're going to be standing in front of groups of practitioners, if there's a message about sort of, or some guidance and final here that you would give to them in terms of as they're starting to do this?
I guess what I would say is that if we all understand and believe that all teachers can support all languages, if we really believe that, and we know now a set of strategies that can help you do that, we'll get better and more refined as we go along. But to help teachers relax around this, because we have a variety of languages that we may be unfamiliar with, that is no cause for us to back off of what we know is in the best interest of the child. So I think the primary value for me is if the field really truly develops a belief and a conviction that we can all do this. There is not a strategy in there that every teacher can't do, and it's really a matter of trying it out and refining it and going through that whole sort of process of reflecting and developing and improving and all of that. I think that, to me, will go a long ways to turning the corner in early childhood field from we're either dual language bilingual or we're English only and that's all we can handle, that's our capacity. No, we all have the capacity to really support all languages. All of us do. And we will all grow from that. We will grow and the field will be enriched by it.
Linda, this is probably, you're not supposed to do this as a moderator, but that was a brilliant answer. It's going to put your two colleagues here on the spot. So Carola, you come up with a brilliant answer. I know you always do. So what do you think, and what message do you give them, Carola?
Well, I'll tag along and to believe and know that all of you, let your teachers, all your educators know and believe that your accent is not a weakness, but a sign of pure sophistication.
There you go.
I love that. That has been so important. I mean, it's been so interesting. Some of you we're going to talk more about it, but Carola and Linda have also helped us understand some of the research about accents. But it's interesting to me, Carola, how the ignorance and prejudice about it. Mm-hmm. And so that, especially, and we hear it all the time in California. So that has been, so I think that's a really nice message, obviously to build on what Linda said, but also to help them understand both from the trainer and the practitioner's point of view, for us to accept these as richness, and not as barriers again. That's great. So Elizabeth, you're going to be, and I got to tell the people that are out there, you're going to be seeing Elizabeth a lot because she's helping us a lot with this Trainer of Trainers. So Elizabeth, what you think about a key thing for these people as we're moving ahead? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think I would say to trainers, thank you. You are doing a huge service to the field and to practitioners that are really wanting to improve their practice and to develop their skills. But I would also say, as a trainer, you are among really incredibly dedicated professionals, many of whom have wonderful skills and abilities to do this work, and many of whom are dual language learners themselves. And I think in the spaces of training, we have to bring that humility to that work and really listen deeply. As much as you are training and conducting the training, listen deeply to those that you are training, because they have stories that will help deepen how you conduct your trainings. They may make you think about how to conduct certain activities and how to use their experiences as highlights and examples of what we're actually seeing in the field and why it's so important to support all languages.
Thank you, Three. I've got to, you know what? I have been in the field of early childhood education for over 50 years, and never have I had such a wonderful experience as I've had with these three women. And they have made me a better teacher, and they have enriched my life in so many ways. And so we're going to help you through this training gather some of this brilliance that these three have brought to our work. So I'm really appreciative of you three. You're my friends, you're my colleagues, and you're all three brilliant leaders in our field. So thank you. Okay, that was fabulous. And thank you all. This is Whit Hayslip again, and it is my great honor. Okay, so that was Whit Hayslip again, but right now we're going to go on in the next section, just give you a little preview. We've talked today about what's happening today, but Elizabeth is going to give us a little preview of the 3 sessions. So you'll have an overview of where we are as we move ahead in the trainer. To host this next section of our training. And we're almost to a break too, you guys, so hold on.
Jessica, do you want me to show the video?
Just want to call out a lot of comments in the chat about the video and how inspirational it was. And I would agree, just the framing of the questions and Carola's point about the strength of an accent. And so people are responding to that in a powerful way. Thank you.
Shall we, Anna, do you want to try sharing your screen? We can see it that way.
Yes, I'll share it.
Okay.
Let me make it bigger. Can everybody see it well?
Yep, that's good.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hola, bienvenidos. And thank you for being here today during the first of 3 Train the Trainer sessions. My name is Elizabeth Magruder, and you'll see me popping in and out of each session over the next 3 weeks, providing tips and considerations that will guide you in planning for your own training sessions with trainers. You just heard a bit of the background from us, which we hope gave you some context for how this work in POL began. And again, it was developed for a very specific purpose, and that was to provide a concrete set of strategies that practitioners could implement throughout the day to support dual language learners and their families. And while this began as a professional development effort that we provided, little did we really know that the impact working with early childhood educators would have on us along the way. So through our work with early childhood professionals, we've observed something really quite remarkable, and that is the deep and lasting commitment of each and every educator to this work. So staff, whether monolingual or multilingual, hold a shared belief that every child and their family have the right to be supported in the best way possible, and that learning languages other than their own is a benefit and not a barrier. We've seen an openness to stretch beyond limits of language to communicate and engage with families and children in meaningful ways, even when they don't share a common language. We've observed the willingness to let go of fears and doubts about whether using the POL strategies was happening in the right way. And we've also witnessed an abiding conviction that supporting young dual language learners and their families is a great responsibility and one that they wholeheartedly embrace. Coaches and administrators have also committed themselves to supporting this work, and they've participated alongside their staff. And they've seen firsthand the intentionality in which they collaborate, plan, prepare, and teach as a result of learning, practicing, and implementing the POL strategies. So why are you all here today? Your role in training the trainers is such an important one, and we really thank you for joining us in this capacity building effort. We hope that after these 3 sessions, you'll have the resources, information, and tools to guide your trainers so they will feel prepared and confident in conducting engaging and meaningful trainings themselves. We wish you great success as you take what you learn here and begin to plan and conduct your sessions. Now, let's walk through each of the sessions and learn a little bit about what this training series is all about. So today's session is an orientation to train the trainer. And so far you've heard the background of POL and had some fun exploring language through singing with the team. Sorry I missed out on that. Shortly, you'll take a guided tour of the training platform where you'll find all the training resources available to you as you plan and deliver your trainings to trainers. And you'll also have some time to explore on your own and ask any questions that come up for you along the way. I'll then guide you through preparing for training, so getting ready, making sure we have what we need to be successful, and I'll provide some tips and ideas for your consideration, again, as you plan your sessions. Then let's look to February 11th. So session 2's focus will be training on the POL strategies. So we'll walk through sections of the 5 foundational POL training videos, and we'll look at some segments and share ways to engage the audience. So we'll demonstrate what aspects to highlight in the training, how you might model concepts interactively for your trainer so that they can, again, train in that way. And we'll really try to take advantage of the online features, since we're in this virtual format together, that will enhance participation and dialogue in your session activities. Then session 3, offered on February 18th, will focus on building capacity for POL implementation. So we'll discuss approaches and tools that trainers can use to incorporate reflective practice in the process, how to plan ongoing coaching opportunities and the various ways that might show up. And we'll think about what supporting home language in all aspects of their programs look like. So everything from planning to implementation, leveraging resources, capacity building within staff. So that will be a comprehensive session. So as you can see, we have lots of work to do together. We're so excited that you're here today joining us and in these next few sessions over the next few weeks. Thank you for being on this journey with us. And I'm excited to see all of you as I pop in and out throughout these sessions. So let's pause and we'll take just a few moments to address any questions you may have. And the team is available to do that with you. So I will see you all soon.
Okay.
Okay, I know that Anna and Deanna have been looking at the chat box, so just have a few minutes. So have there been any major sort of questions or themes that have come up, Deanna and Anna?
No, it's a lot of our comments are, just how grateful everyone is for these amazing sessions, especially since today is our first one. There was a question about if POL is being implemented in TK at the beginning of the video.
Yes, and I know that Carola mentioned that too. Yes, in certain communities, it's interesting that, and Linda mentioned, initially was created for TK, for 4s older fours and young fives. And then through the years, it has been sort of, as we've expanded to birth to 5, but it is still being used in TK classes. And so that one of the things I know that that Linda mentioned, it's important to see it in action. So one of the things that Jessica is going to be doing is connecting all of you to places where you can talk to people who have been implementing. Carola is doing great work with Educare and with Franklin McKinley School District. So there's other places where we're implementing it. So we'll be able to connect you. Those of you who are particularly interested maybe in a particular age level, say infant toddlers, you want to talk to someone that's doing with infant toddlers, or you want to see someone at the TK end.
There hasn't been any really big questions.
Okay, so you know, I know that was a long haul, but we really wanted you to have that strong foundation with those fabulous creators. So it is time for a break. And so we are going to take a 10-minute break. And when you come back, you're going to have a chance to see some of the resources you'll be using as trainers.
Yes, and just a friendly reminder, I know all of you have your microphones on mute, but feel free at this time to stop showing your camera if you're, that way you have some privacy too while you're away. And there is a question if the PowerPoint will be available. The PowerPoint will be available after maybe next week, along with today's recording and the website that Jessica will be sharing with all of you after our break.
Right, we'll be showing you how to access all of those resources, including the PowerPoint and the recordings from today.
Mm-hmm.
gonna call my parent to come in and pick up the iPad. You know what? She doesn't live far away from
welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good break there. We are so happy that you've been with us. I've been so interested in reading the chat box, and so happy that people are engaged and sort of meeting one another and learning. You know what? And I'm actually going to I'm going to sort of break what we were going to do right now real quickly, because I thought there was a really important question that came up about, given the world we are living in right now, about the use of poll strategies in distance learning. And so Jessica, are you on there with me?
I am here.
Okay, Jessica is a wonderful early learning teacher. And so Jessica can share we'll talk more about that in future sessions, but I thought we could have a testimonial from Jessica about her use of distance learning and the poll strategies.
Thanks, Wynn. Absolutely. If you know me or you've heard me speak about poll before, you know that it's very essential and core to who I am as a teacher. I often say I don't know how I taught before without poll. It just put a whole new sense of intentionality. And so I too, like many early educators, struggled when we went to distance learning on where to start and how to do this with my young children, especially my dual language learners. And so for me, the first thing was poll. So poll it transcends all settings. It's proven that to me. And so I definitely have been able to use anchor texts through distance learning, intentional messages, songs and chants, all the different poll strategies, and then supporting home language as well has been really great, because I've been able to rely on the families a lot to kind of be that support and that resource for us. So definitely been able to do that, and it's really helped, I think, with my distance learning. But I can get into specifics with you later on. I know, Miss Linda, you asked that question. I can get into specifics with you a little later on. But we also have, as Whit said in the chat, we've got some training videos about it. And I saw someone else said there's some recorded webinars about it. But definitely poll can be used through distance learning and in person, and it really transcends all settings. It's not something that has to be done in person, because it really is just about the communication of the language. And that's something that we can do through distance learning. So
yeah, and so one of the things, I'm so happy, Linda, you asked that, because one of the things we want to talk about the adaptability of this in terms of these are strategies that we say can layer on. We're using it with family, friends, and neighbor programs. And so it's like, there's ways that we can implement this. So I'm happy that came up. We'll be sure to emphasize that more as we move ahead in these 3 sessions. Okay, so Jessica, let's get up to that next slide here. And we're happy to introduce what we are so proud of, and that you're going to be a pilot group for us with this. So that there was that one of the things as we were preparing, I know a lot of you were involved with our seminar that we did about our wonderful toolkit. And so, but we also decided we needed more resources for you, especially as you were going out and doing training, that we needed more, as Linda said, concrete resources. And so that we have created some concrete resources for you, and we're going to be sharing them throughout this training. And that what it is, we've created it's a website. And on that website, we're going to have many, many kinds of resources for you. And one of the things that we're hoping is that this, again, we've talked about that the website isn't intended to be, there's only one way for you to train. And so what you're going to find on the website, you're going to find lots of content pieces. You're going to find lots of actually even recorded breakout groups. But what we want you to do is, as you're feeling more comfortable in your training, more and more, you may want to let go of the website as you begin to do your own training. But what we want to do, we build a really rich resource with lots of content material, lots of videos, lots of training materials. And then what we're saying is use these from the beginning. But as you move on, as you become more comfortable with it, that you're going to be flexible in terms of how you use them. Also, we're going to tell you, just like Linda said at the beginning when we started this, you're our pilot group with this. And so we want you to try it out. Jessica is going to be coordinating the use of this. And so give us feedback as we move ahead with this. But Jessica is going to walk us through this right now. And then we're hoping that between session 1 and 2, you'll have more time to dig into this and see it as a resource for you in your training. Jessica.
Thank you so much, Whit. So I am going to actually take you to the website. So Anna posted the link to our website, pollstrategies.org, in the chat. So please go ahead. Oh, I don't think you guys can see it. Hold on one second. Let me stop sharing and start a new one. Let's go here. There we are. There we are. So this is what our website looks like. And you can, during this time, follow along with me if you'd like to by clicking on the website yourself, or you can just follow along on my screen. Like Whit said, we're hoping that you'll take some time between this session and our next session to really explore and dig in and take some time to try all the different things and the different areas and see all the different things that are available for you. So when you go to the pollstrategies.org website, this is the page that you'll get. This is our home page. And at the top here, so you'll scroll down a little, and these will be your main 3 choices for navigating the website. As Whit said, we have our toolkit for implementing the language learning project, and that'll be your first choice. The toolkit is basically all of the history and all the information and the learning that we've done through this language learning project so far. All the testing and learning we've done is in there. It's got a lot of resources in the toolkit. And we also last year, many of you I'm sure were a part of the webinar that we did, the leadership orientation webinar. As a part of your pre-work, that was also the webinar that you watched. So that can be accessed at the toolkit button. And I'm going to skip the blue because that's where we'll be digging in a little bit deeper. Go down to the orange, and that is the personalized oral languages learning, or POLL, strategies demonstration videos. Those videos are where you can see concrete examples of practitioners in the classroom with children, from infants to toddlers to preschoolers, pre-K, from different settings, working with children and demonstrating those POLL strategies. You'll also, in those videos, get to hear from teachers about the POLL strategies they're showing, that they're demonstrating, the work they're doing, and how valuable it's been for them. So first, let's go into the toolkit. So I would click here at the top in the pink, and that is the toolkit. And that'll take me to toolkit for implementing the language learning project. Tells you a little bit about it. And there are a few ways you can access the toolkit. Here's a picture of the cover. The first way is you can read it online. So if you select that button, it'll pop up and you can read it here online. If you'd like to download a PDF for yourself, you're able to do that to save to your computer. And if you'd like to have a physical copy of the toolkit, you can select this button here, this orange colored button, to request a physical copy. It'll ask you for some information, very short, your name, address, and then check that you want a physical copy, and we'll send one out to you. If you scroll down, you'll see the toolkit orientation webinar, and that was a part of the pre-work that we asked you to watch if you hadn't had a chance to, or hadn't had a chance to participate in POLL training before. So that's our webinar. That's the recorded video from our session of last summer, as well as the PowerPoint slides. So all of that is accessible. Everything with the toolkit is accessible in the toolkit option. So I'm going to go back now to the home page. And again, skipping the blue for now because we're going to dig deeper into that, but going down to the demonstration videos so that you can see what they look like. So you'll click on the orange for demonstration videos. And again, these are videos from real classrooms. They're real teachers in action with children, with real children. And they're really great examples of the POLL strategies in action. So we've got environmental supports, we've got instructional support. So we've got our anchored text, our vocabulary, intentional messages, songs and chants, and center extensions. And I'm just going to go ahead and click on songs and chants so I can show you what that looks like. So it'll take you to songs and chants and tell you a little bit about that strategy. And then you'll see some demonstration videos here, and they'll be labeled with infants or toddlers or preschoolers. And these are, again, real teachers in the classroom. Actually, over here on the right, that's my classroom. And you'll get to see teachers in action with the children in action, And so my favorite parts of these videos is that it has commentary from teachers sharing about their experiences using these strategies, and also just the children's experiences. So getting to see that as well. So each page will have videos along with the description, and you can access those videos at any time. As trainers, you can access them to review before training. You can share them with your practitioners. There's so many different uses for these demo videos, but they're here for you to use freely and flexibly. So I'm going to go back now to, again, here are all of our videos for all of the different areas. And they are here for you to use flexibly with practitioners or for yourself to review when you're preparing for a training. And going back again to the homepage. So again, this is our homepage. Now we're going to dig in a little bit deeper into the resources that are found in the professional development resources in the language learning project, and that is in the blue. So when we click here, we're going to find videos that we've recorded, as what was saying, with facilitated pre-recordings, breakout groups, things like that, resources that we hope you'll be able to use for your training. And as you get more comfortable using them more flexibly in your trainings with providers. So I'm going to click now on the professional development resources. And it'll take you to a page that looks like this. Professional development resources are going to consist of two separate areas, right? So we've got our foundational training sessions. If you've been to a POL training before, or participated in the language learning project, as many of you have, there are 5 foundational training sessions for providers that teach about POL, about supporting home language, and all of those things are here in the foundational training sessions for providers. We also have down here the training of trainer sessions, which they're the sessions that we're in right now. And as you can see, they're not here yet because we're doing it now and we are live. And so after the sessions, the recorded sessions will be here. And some of you were asking if the PowerPoints would be available, if the recordings would be available, and those will be located here under our training of trainers sessions. So going up to our foundational training sessions for providers, this is where you are going to find videos that you can use. They're pre-recorded from experts like Dr. Linda Espinosa, Dr. Oliva Olsen. You'll find some from Elizabeth Magruder, and they're pre-recordings that you can use during your facilitation of sessions with providers. So there are 2 choices. The first is going to be for use in a facilitated session. That is, if you are facilitating a session, it can be in person when we're able to do that again, hopefully soon, or like we're doing now in a virtual space. These videos will be used there. So they are hearing from the experts, hearing from Elizabeth, hearing from Whit, and hearing from the creators of POL. Those will be here. In the second option, that is for use with pre-recorded facilitation. So those can be flexibly used if you want to review prior to facilitating a session, if you want to see what breakout activities look like. I know Elizabeth will be digging into that a little bit more in session 2 of our training of trainers. So you'll see more what samples, what ideas and comments and what things that providers might say in those breakouts, and recorded facilitation, so you could see some examples of that. So the for use with pre-recorded facilitation has everything that the facilitated session does, but more, because it has more breakouts so that you can see what that would look like in your training.
Yeah, so one of the things, Jessica, that we're talking about in a facilitated session, you're doing breakouts, you're answering questions. All of that is going to be, that's what, in that, when you hit that button, if you were doing that, in the pre-recorded facilitation, you just run right through so that the breakout groups, the questions are all pre-recorded, so that it would be, and this could be particularly helpful, we've known in the pre-recorded, if someone doesn't come to a session, they could use the pre-recorded and go all the way through. The facilitated would be where you have the ongoing contact with your audience. You could, and probably we're feeling as trainer of trainers, that's the one you'd use more often in terms of you being there as a facilitator in terms of the session. And we're also want to emphasize that even both of these, though, you're going to see as Jessica goes through them, are flexible because they're in segments, so that if you've decided that you actually really like what happened in one of the breakouts in a pre-recorded, you could use it in a facilitated session. So as you get more familiar with the website, you'll see it's very flexible in terms of this components.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Whit. So now we're going to actually go into, I'll go into the facilitated session first, since as Whit said, those are the ones we're thinking you'll use more often, because as you're facilitating your sessions with providers, as you're training your practitioners, you're going to be conducting your own breakouts for that engagement. You're going to be answering questions live. And so you would use more of the pre-recorded expert voices from Elizabeth and things like that, but you wouldn't necessarily use as much of the recorded breakouts.
Yeah,
However, you could.
Right.
So-
One of the ways I look at it, Jessica, is in the facilitated session, we have a lot of recorded content. But the facilitation isn't in that. But there's a lot of content from Elizabeth and Linda, Carola. But in the pre-recorded, it's content and breakout.
Absolutely, thank you, Whit. That was a perfect way to say. So we're going to go into where it's only content in the facilitated session now, and that's your first choice. So clicking on the facilitated session, you'll get the option for, again, the 5 foundational sessions. So these are the topics of our 5 foundational sessions. And then if you click into, and we're just going to go into the first one, session 1, you'll see the title of the session here at the top with session 1. And then the videos here are organized into their individual shorter segments. So you can really, as Whit said, flexibly pick and choose which content pieces you want to share from the expert voices or the creators of poll voices, and what content pieces you'd like to share yourself once you become more comfortable with the content. So that is here for you. So we've also got like the recorded song that Whit, Anna, and I did. Of course, once you get into, like we said, more comfort with delivering your PDs and you're facilitating them, you might want to do that song live. So you might not want to use this part. But again, it's all here available for you so that you can use it. And if you're facilitating a training and you want to use all the content, that's great as well. It's all here for you. These videos are organized by sections, and you'll see descriptions of each section here at the top. So this one has the agenda. It has the introduction to the Language Learning Project team, the greeting from the creators of Poll, and our recording of the song Oh Johnny. That's the one that we did today. Again, it goes down into different sections. So this would be your next section where you'd be getting to know participants. And Elizabeth's going to dig more into some of the activities in our next session, but this is where you would find the videos for those if you were facilitating and you wanted to use those content pieces. When you are clicking on the videos, you would select the video and then just press the little button down here that says enter full screen so that you can show it full screen. And then once you're finished, you come back to the site and you can play your next video or continue on with your professional development, however you'd like to. So it's that simple. You just click, it opens it up. It begins to play actually. So
let's walk through the agenda together. And what we have
is you'd click the full screen and it would go full screen. So I'm going to scroll down just so you can see the different sections. So there's section 1.
Jessica, will you go back just because I really walk through that again with, I don't care which one you pick, just walk through where you hit the arrow and then the full screen so they can see that again.
Absolutely. So these videos, they all will begin to play. If you press the play button here, they'll begin to play.
I'm Linda Espinosa, Professor Emeritus
what you'll want to
from
do
the
on a
University
training
of
is you'll
Missouri,
want to
Columbia.
select
And
the
it has
button
been
that
both
says
my
enter full screen, and
privilege
that's what you'll
and
get.
my pleasure to have worked with
You'll
the
get
Fresno.
the full screen, and when you're finished, you can just exit out of that, press your escape button, exit out, and it takes you right back to the site. So you can click on your next video, or if you're doing if you're going to have a discussion, you can go into your discussion or whatever you'd like. So again, you would just click play.
My name is Whit Hayslip, and I'm an
then
early childhood educator
screen.
who's been working with the Language Learning Project.
See right there.
And it's been my good fortune.
To get out, you just press your escape button. It takes you right back to the site.
And that's a really nice example. It's like, I personally encourage you to sing it yourself after you've learned it. So so you can use the PowerPoints that we have available here as well. But that this is, if some of you are hesitant, you don't know the tune, or you're whatever shy about it, it's all there for you to use as well.
Thanks, Whit. Yeah, exactly. This is all for you. It's available for you to use, but it's really open for use however you'd like to incorporate it. So if there are parts that you're more comfortable presenting on your own, once, like Whit said, you've learned the tune of the song and you're ready to do that on your own, then you can do that. You just wouldn't show that video. But if there are parts that you really want to show the content pieces, like for example, greetings from the poll creators, you might really want to have the participants hear from the creators of poll. And so you would use that content. So I'm going to scroll down slowly so you can just see the rest of the page, and it has the videos for
Jessica, go back to I really like this one. I think it's important in terms of, this is really an interactive activity.
Mm-hmm.
So show how that one would work, Jessica.
Absolutely. So this one is Elizabeth giving us an introduction to an activity. And when she plays, so I'm going to play it actually and let you guys hear it.
I really appreciated hearing some of the highlights from the small
because she'll
groups.
review.
This is so activity where we'll explore some commonly held myths and some facts about dual language learners.
So she sends you off into your activity and says, that's what we're going to do. So then you'd escape and you go back, and then now you are able to facilitate your activity.
So, and we give guidance on these. Go back up again, Jessica. So that one, it says breakout discussions for virtual sessions, that if you're live, hopefully we will be live someday again, that you could do this at their tables. It wouldn't be a breakout group. It would actually be a table group, but we give you that so that when you see that, you'll know that when you're doing virtual training, that's the time you send people to the breakout rooms.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for pointing that out. And so actually I want to show this example because I think this will be a good example again of Elizabeth sending us into.
In this activity, we will
So if you look here at the screen, in this activity, as Whit said, in person, you'd have chart paper up and you'd go around and they'd be doing this. But because we're virtual, and if you're doing it virtually, you would have, again, it calls out here, breakout discussion for virtual sessions. So that is when you would do a breakout. And this specific video is Elizabeth giving us directions on the activity. So I'm going to play a little bit so you could see, you can hear how she's giving the directions and then how you would go into your breakouts yourself.
In this activity, we will demystify some misconceptions about dual language learners and provide factual information through a true-false activity.
So that's something that if you wanted Elizabeth to present that for your professional development, you could use this. But if you were more comfortable and you're saying, I can do this part of it, you would be able to not use this video and you could do it yourself. So there's real flexibility in how you use that. So again, we're going to scroll down a little more. There's more content pieces. And it really has every video. It has videos for every segment of the training. We've got some demonstration videos here. So this is one where we've got a practitioner practicing, she's actually conducting the family language interest interview with a parent. And we've got a Spanish as well. So we've got a couple examples here, some demo videos. And so those are, go ahead.
And it's important to realize when you're using the videos, the PowerPoints are embedded in the video. So it's like you don't have to have the separate PowerPoint slide. You can just show the video, like on this one that you see on the right. That's a PowerPoint, what the best and wisest parent, but it is embedded in the video. So you don't have to worry about the extra PowerPoint.
Absolutely. Thank you, Whit. Absolutely. So yes, they are embedded. And I'll show you if you're wanting to access that PowerPoint yourself to review beforehand or for any reason, I'll show you in just a minute where we can find that. So again, we've got to the bottom of our session, and that's session 1, right? So those are all the content pieces that you might want to use for session 1. So I'm going to scroll up again. I'm going to do this kind of quickly. So avert your eyes if you don't want to see me scrolling up really quickly. And I'm going to go back to where we found all 5 of our sessions. And now here in the last box are our resources. Those are our supplemental resources for the foundational training sessions. Again, the foundational sessions are the 5 sessions that you will facilitate with your providers so they can learn about POLE and how to implement that in their own learning settings. So clicking on resources will take us here. And these are supplemental resources for these 5 sessions. So I'm going to scroll down, and here you'll find the titles and sessions numbers of each of the sessions. So session 1, that's the one we were just in, and session 2, all the way to session 5. I'm going to continue with session 1 since that's the one we just looked at, and you'll just click the title and it pops up all of the options that you have for the supplemental resources that you'll need. You've got an agenda, you've got the PowerPoint. As what said, the PowerPoints are already embedded in the videos, but if there's a part that you don't want to use, you could use that PowerPoint, you could use it to review, to write your notes on, whatever you'd like, you can access that. The PowerPoints also have presenter notes if you are wanting to use portions of that.
And it's the PowerPoints also, as you get more and more familiar with the material, you may feel comfortable with all of the content and you may just use the PowerPoints and not the videos. Or you may want to use just a segment, say a segment where Carola's talking. You have the option of combining both the PowerPoints and the videos.
Absolutely. Thanks, Whit. So as he said, these resources, we wanted to provide things that you might need so that you have them available to you. But again, as you become more comfortable with training on the content, as you become more comfortable with the activities, the songs, the different pieces of the professional development, you'll pick and choose which ones you want to use. And all of the resources are here for you to incorporate in whichever way best meets the needs of your group that you're working with. And that may differ between each group. So
Jessica,
we've got,
I just saw a question. I think it's really a nice time to bring, someone's asking how long, so if they use, I'm just curious, Jessica, if they were to use a pre-recorded all the way through, how long is it?
Pre-recorded with facilitation?
No, without, just the pre-recorded.
Okay, so pre-recorded with facilitation is 2.5 hours.
Okay.
And pre-recorded without is about 2 hours.
Okay, so that one of the things we're hoping though, so in general, when we did breaks and whatever, we would talk about a 3-hour session like this. But what we also know is that's very difficult in some environments. One of the reasons that we like all the segments, you might break up session 1 into 2 sessions. That's one of the things about all these segments. We want you to feel free to be flexible about the use of them. In its formal use, we would say, like I said, between 2 and 2.5 hours.
Absolutely. Thanks, Whit. Yes. So if it's just the pre-recordings of the content, it'll be about, like you said, 2 and 2.5 hours. But again, that gives you times for your break and your facilitation and the things that you'll be doing live. And so we get into the resources that you need. For example, in session 1, we talk about the family language and interests interview. And so that document, if you were in person and you wanted to print that out and have that available for your participants, it's here. If you wanted to send that out as a digital copy for your participants, you could do that as well. And that is here. So I'm going to click on it just so we can see it. And that's here for you. And it's available for you to download, to print, to send however you'd like.
Carola, are you on here? Do we have this in other languages besides Spanish and English?
Yes, we do.
Okay, you know what? This is what we want to add it to this website. So if you get those to Jessica, we will include that so people can have another language as well. This is a flexible website.
We'll send it to you, Jessica, shortly.
Gracias. Gracias, doctora. So yeah, absolutely. So again, as we said, as Whit said, you're kind of our test group, right? This is our first time putting this out for our trainers, for you all to access. And so please, after our session, take some time, explore, click on all the links, make sure they're all working or they take you where they need to. and that you have access to everything that you need. We'll continue to add resources as they become available in different languages or things are updated. So please visit and check it out as much as you need to. But please, as we said, but between now and our next session or over even beyond that, into our third session or after that, any questions or anything you may have or something that you see, any feedback you have, please send it our way. And I'll provide my email address in a little while so that you can do that. So again, we have,
Jessica?
yes?
Jessica, there's a great suggestion about a site, a network resource where people can network with others as they're implementing. So we're going to take that back to the team and figure out how we can create something like that.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Deanna. I love that. And that could be something that we can add here as a link, right? That you can access. And we're able to have that kind of community practice. So thank you so much. See, we're already getting all these amazing feedback, already getting it from you all. And so that's why we're so excited to share this with you so that you can access it and really try things out, and we can make it even more comprehensive and have all the things that you may need. So again, there are all of your different resources that you'll need for each session. I'm going to click on another one just so you can see what that looks like. So for session 2, those will look a little bit different. You'll have different handouts, but you'll always have your agenda, your PowerPoint, and your feedback form. The handouts will differ depending on what activities are done in that session. And you have that for all 5. So I'm going to go back again to, here's again our 5 foundational training sessions for providers. This is for use by you when you are facilitating. These do not have pre-recorded facilitation. They do not have recorded breakout rooms. But now I'm going to take you back one more step to our other choice that does have the pre-recorded facilitation. So again, it says for use with pre-recorded facilitation. I will click there. And this is pre-recorded. So again, they have the PowerPoint slides embedded in the videos, and they're available for you to use however you'd like. The same format has the 5 sessions with the titles and the resources down here. I'm going to click on session 1 just so you can see the difference in the videos. So session 1 is here. And you'll see me as your facilitator. So in the pre-recorded facilitation, you will see videos, additional videos that have pre-recorded facilitation like this. So it tells you a brief welcome. That's something that you would do once you're comfortable, or if you want to right away, you can do your live welcome, right? So welcome to our session, or whatever you would like to say, personalize it. But we have a example of a pre-recorded facilitation there. And then it goes into the same videos that we had in our other one. So the additional videos you see are the facilitation, and you'll also see pre-recorded breakout groups. So for that activity we were talking about that Elizabeth introduced, you would have an example of what that breakout session might look like, or what that table discussion, what points providers might come up with. You'll have an example of what that would look like. So I'm actually going to go down to the myths one that we talked about. So Elizabeth would have, or you, depending on if you wanted to share the video, the pre-recorded video or not, have given the instructions, and you can, prior to doing or facilitating your professional development, if you wanted to take a peek into what a breakout room might look like, here's some provider voices, or again, like Whit said, if you had someone who missed a session and they aren't able to participate in a breakout session, but you still want them to hear what that content was like, you could use these. Again, all available for you to use flexibly. So those are the additional available videos in the pre-recorded section. Again, just scrolling down, it looks almost identical to the other one with the addition of the facilitation and the pre-recorded. So again, it has the demo videos and another example of a breakout and a share back, and then closing facilitation from me. So I'm going to scroll up again quickly and go back. Again, this is the pre-recorded facilitation. It looks almost identical or really identical to the recorded facilitation. The resources are here as well, and the resources will be the same, but they're available here for you again in the same manner with the 5 sessions and titles. You'll click and they're available here. Again, the same content as is in the other one. I'm going to take you back now to our, again, when you get to the professional development resources, the recordings from our session today and the PowerPoints of actually all 3 sessions and our recordings of all 3 sessions of our training of trainers will be available here. Taking you back to the homepage.
And one of the reasons we want the Trainer of Trainers materials available, we've heard from some of your communities that in the future, that you may want to be training more trainers, you know, who are going to be there. And so you could use the Trainer of Trainers materials as well to do your own training once you start expanding.
And I think there are some questions. So what questions do you have so far?
Jessica, I've been collecting a couple of the questions. One of the questions was about being able to modify some of the forms.
Absolutely, yes. So let's go back to that. I'm going to click through really quickly to take you back to the resources. And let's just take an example of here. We'll go to, let's say we'll go to our feedback form. So you click and it's a Word document. So all you have to do is you could either open it with Google Docs or you could download it here and it becomes a Word document that you can change however you'd like to. So you can adjust it if you want to change anything. If you want to ask for different information, you can change that. And so I'm going to go back now to show you the PowerPoints and what that looks like because it's the same thing. They're all available in formats that you can edit yourself. The only one here that isn't the PDF is it's a brief that we wouldn't be able to edit because it has content information. So you wouldn't want to edit that one. But everything from the agenda to the PowerPoint to the feedback forms and activity handouts, those are all able to be edited by whomever as you see fit to meet the needs of your group. So I am going to click on the PowerPoint so you can see what that looks like. So here's our session 1 PowerPoint. Oh, there it is. This is what it would look like for session 1. It'll open in a file this way and you can download it yourself. You can download it and then you would be able to see everything here. And again, once you download, these all become so this will become a PowerPoint file and you can edit it, move things around, see all the presenter notes, all that stuff.
The other question was about downloading, but you answered the question that you're able to download every single item. There was another question. What would you consider a full cycle of training? Is it the 5 foundational sessions?
Yes. Whit, do you want to add in a little bit on this one?
Yeah, I think that it is, again, it is, I think there's been modifications to that. Some of you end up having full day because just of the nature of the way you have, the way your contracts work, it's better for you to do a full. So we want this to be modified. What we're saying is the content of these 5 is important for foundational training. Is it done on, does it have to be done on 5 half days or whatever? We want you to be flexible about that in your work. But the materials are there for you to be flexible. Many programs have done them in the 5 sessions. And so that I think that there's some advantage to that, but that you could be flexible about that depending upon your program.
Thank you. Do we have any additional questions?
Yes, there was another question. Are the videos embedded in the PowerPoints?
They are not. The PowerPoints are embedded in the videos. So let me click on one so you can.
Yeah, show that, but by the same token that the videos are separate. So if you decided you were going to use the the PowerPoints, you can now downlink. I mean, you can click onto one of these videos in the middle of your presentation and use it as if it was embedded. And so it's available. So mixing and matching is perfect. You know, it's very possible with this. And that was our goal. So that we see later on, as people may be using more of the PowerPoints, they can embed certain segments. They want to embed the segment with Dr. Espinosa. They can have that clicked on for their presentation.
Absolutely. And I know, yeah, when I present or talk with a group, I like to do that. I like to have the PowerPoint and have the video embedded. So that's something that I would do. Just like you said, I'd have that specific section, just like we did today, right? We have our PowerPoint and we have the specific parts from the different voices embedded. So I want to show you this video because this is an
example. They actually, but let's be sure our terminology, they wouldn't be embedded. It would be, you would click on that. It is like, yes. You know what? Yeah. So it's like, so that I know some of you have them where they're actually embedded in the PowerPoint. This would be where you would then click over and show the video.
Yes. Thank you. So I'm going to show you this one.
Our program approaches in the state of California, which have been clearly described in the preschool program guidelines, are two basic program approaches. One is the balance we provide English, mail or materials, policies, and then recommend approach. Because you have monolinguages we can support all dual languages. Cannot
insert to the next slide.
Yeah, so during Dr. Espinosa's video, you'll go through a number of PowerPoint slides.
Absolutely.
But you don't have to move them. She moves them.
Yeah.
There was another question as well. Is there a fee to use these materials?
Absolutely not.
Thanks the California Department of Education. They this is a gift they are giving to the state of California.
Do we have any additional questions so far?
The other question was, are these materials going to be available in any other languages?
That some of the materials, yes, we have to be careful on that. That, like I saw in the many of the materials are being translated currently, and Carola may help me with this. Right now, we have not in terms of the actual like teacher comments and the videos of those, we have not translated all of those yet. But there's work being done in terms of, say, the PowerPoints and the printed materials.
Is there another question from our participants?
Don't see any other questions aside from people being very thankful for making all these resources available and making it easier for to be able to provide the trainings.
Absolutely.
One more question.
Go ahead, Anna.
If there's a fee, if for example, if someone wants to request a hard copy of the toolkit, is there a fee?
Not currently. Again, that was through grants from the California Department of Education. And so, but currently we are able to provide that without a fee. That may change in the future, obviously, as more and more people want it, but right now there is no fee.
And
there's a question about being certified. Do you have to complete all 3 trainings to be certified? We don't currently have a certification process.
Yes, we're going to give a certificate.
We do, yeah.
So that,
I mean, certified in terms of being able to do it, but yes, you will receive a certificate for completing.
Yes, letting people know that you have been trained, right, to do this. And yes, you need to complete all 3 for us to provide that certificate.
Perfect. I think I saw a question of how do you request the hard copy of the toolkit, and I'll take you back there now to show you where that button is. So if we go back to our homepage, and actually let me show you a shortcut that I love. To go back to the homepage, you can click here at the top icon, our logo, and you can do that. But before I do that, I want to show you, well, actually, let's go there. So we'll go to the homepage, and that takes you right back there. Also, these 3 options are available in this little menu here in the top right corner. If you select that menu, you see again those 3 options that you can select. So it's another way that you can navigate the website if you were at a different page and wanted to find something else. But I will show you now. Again, to request a physical copy of the toolkit, you would select from our homepage toolkit. And then accessing the toolkit, you would click here, request a physical copy. And then that'll ask you for some information and you'll submit it. And that request will go to our team. Back to the homepage. Do you have any additional questions?
I think we need to move on, Jessica Gutierrez.
We do. That's what I was going to say. We don't have any additional questions. We're going to move now to our next portion, but thank you for letting me share that with you. So after the training, of course, again, take some time to explore the website. We went through it kind of quickly, but please take some time to explore, click on again, all the links and explore everything. And any questions you may have, you can contact me. And there's my email, and Anna will also put that into the chat for you. So you have that email link. So now we're going to move on to some key considerations for effective training from Elizabeth. Again, she's going to do a short video for us here. And then after this, we'll have some opportunities for some feedback from you all regarding what she's speaking about. So here's key considerations for effective training. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go into that video now.
Hello again. So let's talk about some considerations for effective training. So we know that early childhood professionals benefit from quality trainers who motivate, engage, and convey the meaning and importance of the content, and also who allow time to process and practice the information presented. Early childhood professionals have so much to share, which also informs the types of activities and interactions trainers use during training. So we hope to provide a variety of ways you might think about that collaborative engagement through this Train the Trainer series. So as trainers, you come up with experience and skills rooted in adult learning principles. And we know that at the end of the day, you design your trainings to meet the needs of the group you're training. We also want to acknowledge that many of the trainers you'll be training directly support providers working with children and families. So it's really important that we hold that space to create trainings that are responsive to where participants are in their learning and implementation journey. So we found that no matter how basic or complex some of the concepts we're training on, we really look for ways to deepen and extend learning and practice by providing time to reflect on what trainers present. So that time for reflection really helps trainers identify needs of the group and also allows the trainer to focus on those really specific needs. And so I just want to say that the beauty of these training resources is that you can use them in a variety of ways. And I'm sure you've heard from the team already some ideas around that, but we can use them in a sequence. We can use segments of them. The materials are really built so that you can truly address and support the priorities of the group of trainers that you're working with. And ultimately, when they're doing their training, they can also really see what the needs of the group are and hone in and focus on specific targeted areas, or the trainings can be used, like I said, in sequence. So it's really kind of how you know who you're working with and what their needs are. That's a really important piece of how to use these materials in the best way. So let's move on. So when we think of effective training and effective trainers, let's pause here, and we'd like to ask you to reflect with us. So in the trainings you've attended, think about what made them successful. We'd like you in just a moment to use chat to describe what made trainings that you've attended memorable, successful, and so that you walked away feeling like that was really worth my time. What did that look like?
So we invite you now to use the chat to share with us what that looked like for you. My goodness. Hold on. There we are. So what made trainings that you have attended successful?
Okay, I see a lot of interactive and engagement. a lot interaction. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's like interaction, sharing, interaction. Small groups and large group, new insights, self-reflection, organize. That's a great, wonderful. New knowledge. That's right. Not just hearing the same old thing. Enthusiasm.
Concrete strategies.
Yeah.
Concrete strategies.
Interacting again. All of that's terrific. I mean, it's so interesting, the consistency and these good strategies and interactive. Yeah, modeling, role modeling. Great. Let's go on back then, Jessica, to Elizabeth here.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue with Elizabeth now.
All right. So I'm obviously not here with you live to see all of your thoughtful responses, but appreciate those. And I will go out on a limb and make some guesses based on my own experiences that some of your responses might have been something like these. What does effective training or successful training look like? Engaging and responsive presenters. There's lots of interaction. I can relate my own experiences to the information presented. I have opportunities for small and whole group activities to engage in. I had time to share. I was heard. I had opportunities to practice. There were short bursts of learning followed by maybe an activity. There were breaks, always fun and important. There were also time for questions and reflection and hopefully some follow-up support after training, someone to connect with. So these may have been some of the things you may have responded to. And if not, these are experiences that I've often tapped into when I've thought about successful training I've participated in. As trainer of trainers, we want our trainees to ultimately walk away feeling like they'll be fully prepared to train and that they'll present content that will be understood and applied. So it might be in your train the trainer sessions that you spend some time up front asking this question or something like it. You'll likely be in smaller groups than ours today, where you can have dialogue and ask them to share out loud, or in chat or in breakout sessions. So let's move on here and talk a little bit about some key considerations for pole training. So we have 3 considerations that a trainer should think about. So number 1, participation. Who is participating? What are their needs? So in your cases, what do you know about your trainers and their needs? What will they need in order to be successful? And the second area is preparation. So what will you need to be prepared to conduct a successful training experience? And then the third is really presentation. So how will I present the information to trainers so that they feel fully prepared? What does that look like? So let's move on and talk about getting to know your audience. So this is a really fun way to really begin to understand our participants. And depending on the size of your group, you might do this in your main meeting room or in breakout sessions or through a chat feature. There are lots of ways to do this, but in small groups, it's always nice to have that open dialogue. So as trainer of trainers, after introductions, you might ask a question similar to that we posed earlier. So you get an idea of how your trainers think about successful trainings. You can also prompt them to share something about themselves that might help you understand their levels of training experience, so that this will help you to make adjustments to support their needs. And in session 2, we'll talk about a specific activity that helps us to get to know participants and their first experiences with learning a language other than their own. And it's really designed so that everyone can reflect and relate the content of the session to their own lived experience. So you might do this with your trainers as well, to model the activity, and we'll talk a little bit about that in session 2. So knowing your audience. So as trainers, we're very well versed in the adult learning principles. And so we tend to guide our trainings and design them in a way that meets adult learner needs. And now more than ever, we're conducting virtual training. So we know firsthand about online training fatigue. And while many of us would say that face-to-face trainings allow us to really engage with each other in a more authentic way, technology does allow us to engage with each other. Engage, more importantly, allows the trainer to really gauge the audience's interest and participation by observing cues. And those cues tell us a lot. And we can see some of the body language here in this photo. And I would say that we are all adult learners. And so sharing with trainers ways to motivate and tap into the adult learner, building those pieces into training is so important. So using online platform features and designing interactive engagement, it really needs to be built in to support that active participation. And modeling and demonstrating and having space to have dialogue and interactivity really keeps us energized and moving forward in the content, and also helps us to really have opportunities to practice and reflect together. And so those are really important key elements, especially because we're not in a room together and we don't have the ability to get up and move and dialogue and have that really kind of in-person connection. So using your tools through the virtual space will be more important than ever. All right, so we've talked a little bit about getting to know your audience, and so now let's move to some ideas around preparation. So we want to make sure that you have what you need to be successful as you conduct training, and so that includes materials and computer and access to content, and having a way to really build your training in the way that you know will fit the needs of your trainers. So let's move forward and talk a little bit about what that looks like. So what are you going to need? You'll need materials, you'll need equipment, you'll need to engage in a virtual meeting platform, and you'll think about your agenda and how you're building your overall session design. And that might look different, again, depending on the needs of your group. But all of the materials are there, as you saw in the training platform, the site where all the training resources are housed. So when we look at materials, you have your POLE toolkit, you have the training platform resources, you have activities that we'll work on together, and I'll share and highlight with you in session 2 specifically. And then you have a way to gather information and feedback. How was the session? What could be improved? And mechanisms to have those check-ins and follow-up. So equipment, this is a biggie since we're now in the virtual space. Your computer is your lifeline. So having a computer that is functional, that you know its functionalities, is really, really essential. I also believe that when you're conducting training, especially in the virtual space, it's really helpful if you can have a partner who can handle logistics and can be designated to provide support, tech support, connection issues, or could even be a backup to you if things go down, if your internet goes down, which we, I think, have probably all experienced. But just having that backup plan and some kind of support for yourself would be important. And also to help others, who may be struggling. Sometimes it's nice to have someone monitoring the chat box or having some sort of mechanism where you don't have to divert your attention to help with tech issues when you're trying to move through content. So allowing a co-host setup is a really good strategy, especially if you lose internet capability. And it applies to your own equipment as well. So computers, just knowing how to load software, knowing how to access the URLs for the virtual platform, really testing, doing a lot of testing. Oftentimes we know the worst case scenario. If we plan for the worst case scenario, hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it does, we've got a backup plan. So the software testing is really important. And then I would also say that because you'll do primary training from a computer, make sure that your share screen feature, you've got that practice in place and that you've tested it several times. Often I've been caught in situations where I've shared the wrong screen. Anything happens. And we all know we're very, very forgiving, but it's nice just to go in feeling really confident about all the functionalities as it relates to your equipment. So let's talk a little bit about the virtual meeting platform. So important to really confirm what online meeting platform is preferred, whether your agency or organization has software like Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or Skype, Google, what else? Google Meets, GoTo. There are lots of platforms out there. Determine what that is and make sure that those on the receiving end can access that platform easily. Or you could ask an agency, if you're working with a site, if they prefer to use a specific platform. Either way, having some time to explore that software and that platform, especially if it's unfamiliar to you, is really important. And not all, as I'm sure many of you know, not all virtual meeting platforms have the same functionalities. So if, let's say, they all have a screen share, they all have chat, not all have breakout sessions. So if that's important to you and you're wanting to set up some activities, then you'll want to make sure that the platform you selected has those features. So doing a little research, if you haven't already, is important, and especially if it's a tool or a platform that you're unfamiliar with. There are lots of tutorials. I've learned a lot of ways to expand my tool belt in delivery through online platforms, and there are lots of quick and easy tutorials that can give you some great ways, a variety of ways to engage the audience. And just, I would say, test, and test again, because even when you come into a space and things fall apart because of internet bandwidth or whatnot, you're really comfortable and can pick up the ball if it drops. So on that note, again, lots of different platforms out there. These are common features that we find in all of these. But again, breakout features are not common to some of these platforms. So if that's an important engagement tool that you like to use as you conduct trainings, just make sure that the platform that you've chosen can actually support the breakouts. One thing I would say about the video camera, so I'm sure you all have been in meetings where your internet connection is a bit spotty, and oftentimes we notice that if we turn the camera off, our bandwidth increases and we have clarity, we can hear better, and we can be heard better. So we like to at least start off with video cameras on, especially if you don't know folks that you're training. It's important to just have that eye contact and see each other's faces, make that connection. And then we oftentimes offer the flexibility to turn a camera off. We are always operating under positive assumptions that you're not taking a nap off camera. But that certainly if you need to eat something, we're very flexible about those things. And if your camera needs to go off because your bandwidth is at risk, certainly those are things that we need to consider in our training and be flexible about that. All right. And then when it comes to agenda and overall session design, a lot of the materials are there and ready to go. And again, in session 2, we'll dig into the activity portions and how to be thinking about what you want to include in your trainings and what you want to highlight, certainly. How you manage questions and schedule your breaks will be really up to you, the needs of those that you train, your trainers. And they would obviously offer that to the participants, the teams that they'll be training. So lots of ways to manage those questions. Chat comes to mind for big groups. Muting everyone on entry, I think, limits distractions, and the speaker can be heard, but making sure that people have access to either unmute themselves to speak, or that you do that for them, or have someone to support you in the logistics really helps. We want to encourage dialogue. So oftentimes when people come into an all muted entry, that can be off-putting. So sharing that for now everyone's on mute but that we'll have lots of time for dialogue and be able to, we want to hear from folks. It's really important when you're managing those questions that you share with your trainees that you'll have either designated times for questions, or as you're noticing a flood of questions in the chat box, it may be time to pause your training and really listen in. Likely, if you're getting a flood of questions, that's a signal to stop. So how you do that and think about that through your overall session design matters. And it also changes, as we know, because we have to be responsive to what our trainees need. So if those questions come in, there may be other mechanisms that you'd like to engage that perhaps you didn't initially plan for. And then practice delivery. So again, I think all of us feel like practice doesn't always make perfect, but practice is better. So having opportunities to talk out loud, run through your session agenda and presentation before you get on with others will help you work out those kinks. All right, let's look at the last area. So skills for delivery. So as we're thinking about skills for delivery, I oftentimes go back to what is meaningful to me. When I've attended engaging trainings, that's what I want to be able to deliver to trainees. So design the training that you would be excited to attend and participate in. I've also learned myself that less is more. So I used to be one of these people that would splash pictures everywhere and words everywhere, and it was just so much for the brain to contain. Plus, you have the speaker speaking to you, and they may not be reading directly off their slides. So I've learned over time that less tends to be more, and that what we can say in a visual oftentimes takes the place of words. That the way that we can bring information to life through visuals, through modeling and demonstration, oftentimes activates the brain and helps us to really attach to the information more easily. And so those are things that I valued about trainings that I've attended. And the last thing I would say is anytime you can show me and involve me, I not only benefit because I'm engaged, but it challenges me to participate, and it helps me to practice so that I can turn around and share information with others. So if I really understand it, it's that whole learning pathway that we'll talk about in a second that you all know very well. So these are just some considerations I think of, and it starts with what are some trainings I've been to that I've loved, and incorporating some of those strategies in my own. So supporting the path of learning. So we know that when we're prepared and we know our material and we can say it and present it and then show it and demonstrate it and then allow for that practice opportunity for others to be able to demonstrate what they've heard and what they've learned. And then that support system of, I may not fully have it, and so help me to fully have it or help me to understand it better, is certainly a learning path that I think we use with children. And it goes a long way with adult learning as well. And so supporting the path of learning is really fairly predictable. And at the same time, how we present material that gets away from just telling and reading off of slides and actually demonstrating and involving participants and trainees will help, especially in the virtual format, anchor that learning. And the idea is we want everyone to leave feeling like I've had a little time to practice this, and now I'm going to go back and try more and practice more. So oftentimes in our trainings, we carved out space for practice opportunity, some support, some reflection, and then asked folks, now take it back and try it yourselves and come back and tell us how it went. So the idea wasn't learn it, do it, and this strive for perfection. Rather, you have to practice and practice and practice to deepen your understanding and to reflect on areas for improvement. And so that help me piece is also a really big part of that support system. So the learning path is critical when we're thinking about designing, and especially in the virtual format. So engaging the audience. So we have some thoughts here, and we've got some ways that in our training we engage our audience, and I'm just going to flash them up. So we talk about the welcome, we talk about introductions, what our session schedule looks like, how we're involving participants in understanding that we will have built-in breaks and ways to engage to take care of needs. What materials are we sharing? Should we have shared them in advance of the meeting? Would that be helpful? Will they be getting materials that we need to walk through together? What will that look like? How we are setting the agenda and really thinking deeply about our engagement, how we're using our platform features and our activities to really elicit that participation. And then what are some guidelines for success? So what are some things that we feel are important in getting the most out of the training together? And so I would ask, is there anything here that's missing? So in your experiences in training online in particular, what might you add? And do you have any tips to consider? So I would love to be able to talk about that kind of journey in your own, from your own perspective, and hear a little bit about ways that you have found virtual training engagement, what tips, strategies you've had that you have not only utilized, but where your trainees have felt really engaged in the process. And so it would be nice to hear. And I'd like to pause for a moment to have you think about ways that you've prepared for online learning, what that looks like, and what tips you'd share with the group, with others. So while you're thinking about that, I will leave you here with the team to share those strategies. Thank you again for joining us in the Train the Trainer series. You will see me all next week, and have a wonderful rest of your training. And I'll be interested to hear some of your tips, and I'll check in with the team after the session to hear what you all thought. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the training.
Okay, as we are coming to a close here, so that Jessica, put that other slide up there. Okay, so what we'd like you to do as we're closing up here is just start chatting in the chat box. Just put in some of the ways that you found to engage people. We get that one up there.
All right, so
enter in there any specific strategy. You can do that as we're closing up here. So just in the chat box, any kind of specific strategy you've been using to engage your participants. And as we're doing that, Jessica's going to get us ready for our next sessions, right, Jessica?
I sure am. Thanks, Whit. So please share all of those amazing strategies. And so we're just going to wrap up our session here. Today was kind of an orientation to the materials, to what we're going to be talking about. You got to hear some history from our poll creators. And I know that was like my favorite part. And then we're getting to hear some tips from you on how you like to train. And so in our next session, which will be next Thursday, February 11th, we'll focus on some key elements of poll and training on poll. And then in our third session, which will be on February 18th, the following Thursday, we'll be building capacity for poll implementation. So talking more about building that capacity in your communities while they're implementing poll. So that'll be our second and third session coming up. So as Whit said, we're coming to a close here. We would love your feedback. So please take some time to complete the feedback form for today's session. Again, this will be a way to confirm your attendance in the session today as well. And as Whit shared, after the participation in the 3 sessions, you'll receive a certificate of completion for this training of trainers. So please, you can use the QR code by scanning with your phone, or the link that Anna will post in the chat as well to complete that feedback form. And we thank you for your feedback.
And can I say one thing, Jessica, about feedback? I want to tell you, feedback is so important to us. Some feedback we got during this session talked about our interview form and the non-inclusive language we use for families on that. We are changing it. So thank you. It is like, that's what we want from you all. That was such a wonderful comment. It is not inclusive language. And so so that's the kind of thing we want into this whole process for you to inform us that we make POLE a better tool for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Whit. And now I'm going to pass it to Maria, who will close us out.
And thank you everyone once again for joining us in the first session. We hope that you found this session helpful, and thank you for all your feedback, and these resources were developed for you and for you to use. So we're happy that we saw some things that were coming through the chat, and I do not want to walk away without thanking the ECE community in Fresno for supporting the development of the videos and the resources. Sometimes it's not very comfortable to be videotaped, but they did it, and they did it for you. So once again, thank you. And this wouldn't be possible without the contribution of CDE in the Early Learning and Care Division. So I'm not sure if Dr. Luis Rios is here, but once again, thank you.